Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Vince, and I've been doing admissions since 1989 and college counseling since 1998 in California.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a wellness coach at the Keenan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And I'm so blessed to be able to work alongside both my beautiful daughters at School Match for You, a college counseling firm that I founded in 2010. Good morning, friends. I'm coming to you from the River Walk of San Antonio. Special thanks to Lowry in Dallas, Paula in Austin, Sharon in San Antonio, all of whom have hosted great gatherings for YCBK listeners to meet for me on this trip. And I'm really having the time of my life visiting these colleges. So far, I've spent 10 hours at SMU over 2 days, 4 hours at UT Dallas, 7 hours at Baylor in Waco, 3 hours at Southwestern, which is a college that changes lives, college in Georgetown, Texas. And I spent 7 hours over 2 days at UT Austin, which in Texas, they just frequently call it UT. So 5 delightful visits done, 7 to go. I still have to visit Trinity tomorrow, UTSA on Tuesday, Texas A&M on Wednesday, TCU Thursday and Friday, UT Arlington Monday, North Texas Tuesday, and Austin College Wednesday, which is the other colleges that changed life college in Texas. And I just have so much to say I want to share with you, but I'm going to make a promise to you. It's something I said I would do back in 2025. I'm going to list all of the colleges I visited from this Texas trip, the one from my 24-day November-December trip to North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and my 26-day 20-college trip in California, and my 7-college trip to the Pacific Northwest before that, plus other visits our team members have done in the last couple of years. I'm going to list all of these colleges on the Your College Bound Kid website on a Google form that myself or other members of our team are willing to do a spotlight on. And we're going to ask you to vote for the colleges you want us to do spotlights on. You know, I have really good intentions to do these spotlights with you, but there are just so many colleges, and sometimes to figure out how to do all of them, it can be a little bit overwhelming at times. But this way you can select the spotlights you want. So that's one solution, is to prioritize the ones you want to hear the most. Now, there is one downside to that. I still want to make sure we shout out the heralded gems, unheralded gems that often get overlooked. So we'll find a way to do both. But I'm just committing publicly to have this up on the website by June 1st for you to vote on. And sometimes there'll be visit recaps where we editorialize a lot and give our opinions. And in some cases, you know, we've already lined up a senior staff admissions member, like the interview I'm currently doing on Thursdays with Jim Bach of Swarthmore, who's already committed to come on and to be interviewed. Now, for our college counselors out there, Counselors Connect meeting is next Sunday, or this Sunday, February 27th. That's our February meeting. Very excited to have a few announcements to make there I think you're going to like. In today's episode, I'm going to share a question. I keep getting asked 2 different questions at these receptions and in my travels. You want to know what we do at these receptions? Well, Dallas was 2 straight hours of live questions from listeners. We had like 30 attendees. And then Austin was like 90 minutes straight questions from listeners. And I'm also doing lunches and dinners here. So there's a lot on people's mind, but there's 2 questions I keep getting asked. You could say they're the elephants in the room, and I want to speak to those today. I'm also going to share a recommended resource that I'm very reluctant to share with you, but I'm going to step outside my comfort zone and just share it anyway. Then I'm going to share another recommended resource I'm very excited about that's very insightful. Can't wait for you guys to learn about this one. A lot of times parents wonder, what can I do? Everyone is telling me, student in the driver's seat, parent in the passenger seat. And as a parent, I feel helpless. I want so much to help my kid, but I just feel like I'm being sidelined. Well, I want to share an exercise. It's one I've just really started doing with my students and parents. And you can do this over the next 90 days, and it can really help your student. I'm really excited to share that with you. So let's dive in with the two questions that keep coming up. The first one is, how is my student supposed to make a decision? They have a few different options. They're really struggling to make a final decision by May 1st. We actually talked a lot about this at the Austin reception. So I have a few tips for you on this one. The first one is to listen to interview 202. Now, all you have to do is put YCBK interview 202 in Google and it will pull right up. So what is interview 202? Well, every now and then, I think a question from a listener is so important that we actually put it into the interview section on the website so that you can listen to it in its entirety, one audio file. You don't have to jump around part 1, part 2, part 3, and find the different timestamps to listen to the whole thing, which is just a pain. And so, we did that recently. I felt the conversation I have with Andy about how admission officers are responding to the financial challenges. I thought that was really important. So you'll see that whole thing up in its entirety in our interview section. I thought the question Hillary and I answered, the do's and don'ts of what to do at a college fair, was helpful. And I'll be totally honest with you. A lot of times in my own counseling practice, people will ask me a question. Like I literally got asked that question last week. Somebody was traveling there on their own. They sent me a text. Hey, we're going to go to a college fair. Any tips? Super easy for me to just direct people right to the 45-minute deep dive when it's on the website like that. So what happened last year this time, Nishan, a dad from Texas, he asked this question. How is my student supposed to decide when she has incredible options? And I thought it was a really important question. So Julia answered it. Susan answered it. Lisa answered it. I asked Nemanja to merge all the different audio files into one link, and it's all up, and that's interview 202. We put them all together and labeled it interview 202. So please check it out. There's a lot of wealth of wisdom in there. I had someone reach out to me a few weeks ago, and they heard the segment Lisa did, and he said, this is outstanding. How can I meet with Lisa? And so, different listeners find different portions of it helpful. All three of them, in my opinion, were fantastic. So I also want to add that in an ideal world, you would do what I'm doing right now, right? You'd visit each campus under consideration. You'd spend hours on each campus. You would talk to as many students, parents, faculty, staff, administrators, and you'd ask them tough questions. And then you would trust your instincts. You would ask yourself two questions. What place feels like it could be my home away from home for the next 4 years? Are these my people? Is this my place? But you'd also ask a second question. Is this place going to stretch me to reach my full potential? Is this place going to be like a trampoline that will allow me to soar and reach my maximum potential with my life? You wouldn't just pick the place that is the easiest, because sometimes you have to go through some stuff, some hardships and some difficulties to reach your full potential. So it wouldn't only be what place is all smiles, fun, and happiness. It'd be a combination of where can I be happy, what feels like home, and what place is going to allow me to soar to prepare me for the real world. And you would vet each school. Is it a financial fit? Very important. Is it a social fit? Is it an emotional fit? Meaning, is it healthy? Is it an academic fit? And is it career and college major fit? You would do all that. The problem is very few people have the time or resources to spend hours or days on a campus imbibing the place and talking to 10 to 20 people. So what can you do? Well, once again, I strongly recommend you do visit any college under serious consideration. I'm just not a fan of showing up sight unseen. But if it isn't possible for you to visit, or if you can only do a real brief visit, there's still a lot that you can do to get a sense of what it would be like from your own home. Of course, you could do virtual and video tours, and you should do that. But you can always use your network to find a student at a school. And your network may mean you reach out to admissions and say, I'd love to talk to a student who's interested in XYZ, or, whatever you feel as a student you could relate to. And then once you talk to that student, here's the key. You ask them, do you know any other students that I could talk to? Especially non-tour guides. Now, why do I say non-tour guides? Are tour guides not honest? They're absolutely honest. Most of them are very, very honest. But I'll tell you two things that happened to me on this trip. I'm not going to mention the schools. On two different occasions, tour guides said to me, I would like to meet with you not when I'm on the clock and not in the admission office, because I can really keep it real and I'll be able to say some things I can't say. So you do have to understand, I'll tell you, I was having a conversation at this time, I will tell you the school it was at UT Austin. And I was meeting with a couple students, and these meetings were all planned in advance, but I was in the admissions welcome center. And I ask students tough questions when I'm having these conversations. And, I hope that my kids and my wife don't hear this, because I'll get a big I told you so. I have a tendency to be loud. So one of the people that worked in admissions came up and said, "Do you guys mind taking the conversation outside? We have visitors here." So that can be the downside with asking the tough questions, like right in the admission office or with tour guides. So that's the reason why I say non-tour guides. But tour guides are great as well. And sometimes tour guides can be a great source to meeting other students. They're very well connected. And you can meet them outside of the admission office and get that full transparency. You can do all that from the convenience of your home, just working your network, talking to as many different people, professors, students, administrators, staff, whoever you need to, financial aid. It's also worth reading hundreds of reviews on places like Niche and Unigo and so many other websites that have reviews. Here you're looking for patterns and themes and things that just keep coming up over and over again. It's worth joining groups like ZME, and there's ZME for almost every college. You can really see the kind of student that's attracted to each school when you're in a social media app like ZME and you see who's around you. And go to places like YouTube and watch all those pros and cons videos. You think, it's YouTube. It's a student. I particularly like juniors and seniors more than freshmen, but even sophomores, those are good. Once again, no one source of data is gospel, but you're compiling it all. It's all part of the research that you can do from home. And finally, don't let your student or you as a parent say, "I'm tired of all this. We're deciding on Monday." Take your time. Take your time up until April 30th. It's amazing how much clearer the picture will be if you wait long enough. And especially if you're not waiting idly, but you're also doing your research. And ultimately, go with what you're most at peace with. Don't use the rankings to make up your mind for you. Go with what you're most at peace with. The second question I keep getting asked is, what is going to happen with all these colleges? Trump is threatening Harvard's tax-exempt status unless they change their hiring practices, unless they change their admissions practices, unless they share all this information about international students. He's freezing $2 billion of Harvard's funding. They claim it's all about anti-Semitism, but I don't believe that's the motivation. I'm just be really honest with you. I mean, this week, a sitting Jewish governor in Pennsylvania was almost killed by an arsonist, and the president can't even call to convey support and empathy because he doesn't like his politics. So where's the anti-Semitism concern the guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue claims is motivating him? I believe the motivation is to get rid of diversity. It's all part of the backlash, against diversity. Something that started in the far outliers of the internet. So white replacement theory has now become central messaging from Stephen Miller and his ilk. It's all part of taking control so they can control the minds of what goes into young people. That's why you have the banning of books, the banning of classes. It is a campaign of intimidation, a campaign of bullying. It's about trying to amass power, threatening to remove the tax-exempt status of Harvard, threatening even Harvard's accreditation. But what is going to happen? I keep getting asked this. Well, they're very serious. If you don't believe it, listen to the daily podcast, April 11th. It's a listener sent this in to me, and I had to listen to it. It was painful, but I had to listen to it. It's entitled, "The Conservative Activist Pushing Trump to Attack U.S. Colleges." It's an interview with Christopher Rufo. You really need to hear what he is trying to do and what the administration is listening and enacting. So the threat is real, and it isn't just large colleges. I spoke to a senior leader of a small college recently who told me we would lose $12 million. It's not just the big boys with the big NIH funding. There's all these little small grants we have. And we can't afford to lose $12 million, so we have to play ball. So what do I think is going to happen? I believe Harvard won't win every battle, but for the most part, I do believe it's going to win in the courts. And other colleges with deep pockets like MIT and Princeton and others are rallying around them. I think in the long run, Harvard and others who publicly side with Harvard will be strengthened by drawing a line in the sand that the law firms in the country, the leading law firms, have not been willing to do. And I believe Columbia will regret the day they decided to accede to the demands of the administration. The guy in charge is a bully, and he's going to keep coming back for more power, just like he's going back to the law firms now, trying to extract another pound of flesh out of them. But this week, Alan Garber, the 69-year-old Jewish president of Harvard, said, and I quote, "No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue." And it's been a rallying cry, and other universities are supporting Harvard. Now, I do believe Harvard and others are going to be bloodied and stigmatized in conservative circles. I already hear it now from some of my conservative families who say, I'm not paying for that indoctrination of liberal thinking. The problem is once you cross the rubric and do the unimaginable, attempt to control what colleges could teach, it's that much easier for the next politician to come behind you and do the same, or to go even further. And what was the unthinkable can easily become the new norm in less than a decade. So ultimately, the end result is going to depend on whether Americans like these decisions and who they elect to represent them. Remember, public sentiment is everything. Without it, you can't do anything, and with it, you can do anything. Lincoln. I had one college leader say to me, "We don't have Harvard's resources. We can't fight like they can. Our pockets are not that deep." So I don't judge anyone who doesn't make the decision they made. But I do believe in the long run, and I may be talking decades from now, or maybe years from now, Harvard drawing a line in the sand will be rewarded. But that is just me answering a question I keep getting. We talked a few months ago of how the Ivy League schools and their companions are under attack. And it isn't only Harvard, it's Brown, it's Cornell, it's Columbia, it's Northwestern, and so many others. And I believe it will continue to be more. Listen to that Christopher Rufo interview, and you'll see who he plans on going after. But watch the courts. I feel these schools are going to have some big wins in the courts over the next couple of years. Current guy's not going to be in charge forever, and the pendulum can swing back. Courts can also award compensatory damages. Now, compensatory damages are monetary awards designed to compensate a party for losses and injuries that they suffer as a result of another party's negligence or unlawful actions. And these damages aim to put the injured party back in position they were in before the incident occurred. Now, you can't completely control the impact and the damage. Like Harvard's going to get bloodied. There are going to be some body blows. But people are finally rallying that they decided to stand up and fight. All right, what's the recommended resource I'm reluctant to discuss? This is going to be hard for me. So I got an email this week from a podcast listener who said, "I really enjoy your podcast, but I really liked your book even more, and it's been extremely helpful to our family." And then this listener asked if she could have a conversation with me. So I actually talked with her yesterday from a hotel in San Antonio, and she said, "Why don't you talk about your book on the podcast?" And I told her, well, I don't want to come across like I'm engaging in self-aggrandizement, to which she said, "You need to talk about your book." To which I told her, okay, I'll say something about it on Monday's episode. So in 2016 and 17, I wrote a book. It's called 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions, because I've had this passion for a really long time to get important information about college into the hands of people at an affordable price. I first started working on this in 2012, from 2012 to 2014, 14 months on a film project, a 10-hour DVD series that cost me $100,000, which was a lot of money for me now, and it was a really lot of money for me back then. And our total sales were $38,000. So I can laugh at it now, but it was not fun losing $62,000 on that project. In fact, that was the last time I was in Austin. Was traveling around with the team, Anika and others, to, get the word out about the Game Changer College Admissions video series, a 10-hour DVD series attempting to explain the college process. And I just was trying to get information in people's hands that for people that couldn't hire an outside private college coach, something they could afford. But people would say, I don't have 10 hours to watch videos, or I want to talk to you, not watch a video. So I said, okay, I got to go back to the drawing board. And the main thing is stuff kept changing on me as we kept having to hire video editors. So the next project was the book. And I'd learned some things from traveling around and talking about the video series. And I learned that people like stuff in bite-sized doses. So right in the start of that book, I talked about the scientific research of how the attention span has changed and how much shorter it is because everything coming at us, right? So much stimulus, social media, just everything coming at us so quickly, it literally changes the brain. So the book, what I do is I took the 171 most frequently asked questions that I get, and I turned each one into a chapter. It's like over 60 chapters on paying for college. There's over 70 chapters on tips about how to get in. And the idea is you go to the glossary, find the questions you have, jump right to the page, in the book that answers the question. And so that is just kind of my attempt to get college knowledge available to all out there. And so really, it's probably helpful for you to understand is the third major attempt to do this, making college knowledge available to all, is the podcast, making it available to people despite the resources you have. And in the first 171 episodes of Your College Bound Kid, we go through that book chapter by chapter and discuss the content in that book. It's a funny story. We were originally selling the book on stamps.com, but Amazon, they're the big bully on the block, right? So, and I was using their company CreateSpace to produce the book. They actually produced the book. This is like buy on demand. So in the past, like one thing is the videos cost me so much because I had this huge inventory I had to pay for it. But with the books, they print them on demand. So we had the Kindle version up on Amazon, and they said to me, you have 2 weeks to put the paperback version up or we're pulling down your Kindle. So they had the power to win. So I ended up putting up the book on Amazon, and they print it out. It's like a 692-page book. It's $25. So let's say production and postage and handling is like $10. Amazon keeps another $10, and I get $5. I literally get $5. So I'm not sharing this at all to get the $5. Trust me, I just reluctantly am sharing this with you. But after that listener challenged me, I thought, let me just share with you this tool because maybe it would be as helpful for you as it was for this listener. And I'm really uncomfortable with this, but if it helps you, then I'm willing to step outside my comfort zone. All right, let's get to the thing parents can do that can really help your students a lot. And I haven't heard this anywhere else. In fact, I never used to do this myself with my listeners. It's just an idea that popped into my head. Now, if you go to YouTube, and you guys can tell I'm a big YouTube person, right? I might not watch a lot of movies. I feel I don't have a lot of time for them. Sometimes I have them on the background, but I don't have 2 to 3 hours. And I'm a wimp when it comes to violence. So I see a shooting and I feel like it contaminates my brain. So I don't watch a lot of movies, but I do watch a lot of YouTube. And if you go to YouTube and you put in Peter Johnson, Columbia University, you'll find a 17-minute interview with Peter Johnson, legendary dean of admissions at Columbia for 35 years. In fact, one of the things I wish I would have had an opportunity to get to know Peter. Susan and I, we were on a board together called Go to College in New York City. And Peter was a board member. And we were just getting ready to learn from him. And he tragically passed away, just really surprisingly, before I really had an opportunity to really get to know him. But I know of his wisdom. And what he does in this interview is he's being interviewed by a teenager from a teen newspaper, Columbia Kids Patch. It's a teenager. And he's asking, how can we know what is important to Columbia? Now, this is the second resource. I really want you guys to watch this video. It's really good. Once again, just go to YouTube, put Peter Johnson, Columbia admissions. It'll pop right away. It is, I just listened to it again for maybe like the 8th time, and it is just replete with wisdom. But here's how it relates to our topic for today. So here's what Peter Johnson says when the teenager says, how can we know what's important to Columbia? This is what he says. Each college can create its own questions. And if a student wants to know what is important to us, you go to the institutional questions. Go to that part of the application to learn what is important to us. And here's the interesting thing. He leads with that right away. Then they go off. They talk a lot about a lot of different topics. He talks about rankings. He talks about overall essays and mistakes people make in personal statement. He talks about a number of things. And then he closes the interview with the same point. If you want to know what's important to us, go to our institutional questions. So please listen to that. It's really worth your 17 minutes. Now, what is the thing the parents can do? So I told you last week I was going to come back to this website, and this is a for-profit website, but they do a good job. internationalcollegecounselors.com. You go there, you go to the essay tab, and then underneath it says essay prompts. Now, just from last week to this week, they got rid of 1 year. They had 2023, 2024, and 2025 up last week when I mentioned this. And now they just have 2023, 24, 24, 25, and they're starting at 25, 26. But right now they don't have any individual prompts up. They just have the coalition and the 7 prompts for the Common App up. But as they do the research and they find out new ones through some of the methods I shared with you last week, they're adding them. So the project is for parents to put together a spreadsheet. It's a great parent project. And a simple spreadsheet, right? You have name of any college even remotely under consideration. And then you put up the 2023, 2024 custom prompt, which is listed there. The colleges are alphabetized by names. Just copy and paste. And sometimes it's pretty long because some cases you have like 4 options to pick from. And then put up 24, 25, put that up. And then you have to keep checking back because as they find new ones, they'll put up 25, 26. So you're literally going to have 3 years of questions. And there's 3 reasons why this is really important and really helpful. But before I get to those 3 reasons, I'm just going to pull an example for San Diego, a college I like a lot, by the way, the University of San Diego. So this is what they put up for 23, 24. I'm going to read it to you. The University of San Diego offers diverse educational opportunities grounded in the liberal arts and sciences. First-year students are immersed in one of our 5 living learning communities, with the themes reflecting the vitality of the liberal arts tradition. So what are their learning living communities? Advocate, collaborate, cultivate, illuminate, and innovate. Select one of these 5 themes and describe how it resonates with you and why. Now, I spent a day at University of San Diego in like September 9th or 10th, one of those days. I can tell you these living learning communities are really important to them. They automatically put freshmen into one of those 5, and you live with those students. So understanding them is the core of the school, that and their change maker concept, being a change maker. So it's really important. So that was your option in 2024. Okay. Now, 2025. And the interesting thing is for 2025, they have a mandatory question, and then they have choices of several prompts. So here's their mandatory question. For over 75 years, the liberal arts has been the cornerstone of the educational experience at USD. They help students explore the world, past and present, lay the foundation for building inspired and meaningful lives. They also provide skills and experience students need to be successful in an increasingly changing and challenging world. Throughout the first year and beyond, we engage students in this exploration through our core curriculum and learning communities, connecting them with faculty who will guide them as they become global citizens. What excites you about the academic opportunities at USD? Now, anytime you see a mandatory question, you know that's extremely important. They're revealing their values. They're revealing what they're looking for. Okay, now, they also have several optional questions. I'm just going to read one of their optional prompts. First of all, you have to know this. University of San Diego has been designated as one of 42 change maker schools. That's not in the U.S., that's around the world. It's an organization that designates schools as change makers. So here's what they say. As a proud change maker campus, the USD experience emphasizes change making through care for our common home, social justice efforts, civic engagement, social innovation, creativity, and a global perspective. Write about one of the challenges facing humanity today. Why does it matter to you? What experiences or insights have you had that speak to the urgency of the issue? So you can just tell just by these questions that what is important to USD. So I said 3 reasons why this is a really great project. Reason number 1, it's great insight into what a school cares about and what they're looking for. That can help you to even figure out if you're even interested in a school. So part of anybody's research when they're even trying to figure out if they're interested in a school should be to look at the custom prompts. Now, not everybody has custom prompts. In general, most selective schools do, but not all. There's some very selective schools that don't, but most do. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, there's a very good chance they're going to stay the same. So you can start noodling and thinking, putting bullet points, thoughts down. Are they going to stay the same? And getting ahead on the application process. And then lastly, you get insight into how much writing you're going to have to do. How much time am I going to need to put in to do this application? Because even that prompts can change, a school rarely goes from having a whole bunch of prompts to no prompts, or no prompts to a whole lot of prompts. What's more common is that they switch them out. So those three reasons help you understand if this school is for you. Do you like what they're asking for? Can you get insights into what they care about and who they are? Is that who you are? Starting to noodle and put some thoughts down so that you're getting ahead, so that it turns out that the questions are the same. You're already ready to write. And chances are, even if they're not, their values are going to be similar. And then getting a sense of how long the application is. And if a school's on the fringe for you to apply to, it's not bad to say, I don't know if it's worth it for me to put that much work in to write all those essays. Nothing's wrong with that. All right, let's look at one more school, University of Rochester. All right, in 2023, 2024, they had a mandatory prompt. And they also had options. They had 4 options, 200 words or less. By the way, optional is not optional, but you had to select one of those 4. It actually wasn't optional in this case, but sometimes when they are optional, please don't see it as optional. Anyway, let's look at their mandatory prompt. The University of Rochester motto of Meloria, or even better, deeply integrates critical core values in all that we do. These core values of equity, leadership, integrity, openness, respect, and accountability define not only who we are, but also who we hope to become. Use the space below to highlight a time, creative idea, or research experience when you put into action one or more of these characteristics in order to make yourself, your community, or the world even better. So it's very clear they're looking for change makers. They're looking for difference makers. They're looking for people that are going to make society and their campus better, right? It's like it's right there. I mean, Meloria, even better, and it tells you what it is. And then you have your ops for the second one. Now, for last year, so the one that I just shared with you, that would 2023, 2024, that would be the freshmen in college. So the current seniors, ones that are about to go to college in the fall, they had a different question they had to answer. And it was this. The University of Rochester benefactor, entrepreneur, photographer, pioneer, and philanthropist George Eastman said, "The progress of the world depends almost entirely on education. In what ways do you envision using the curricular flexibility and co-curricular opportunities at the University of Rochester to promote progress and change within the communities you inhabit?" So look, you see the similarity. You can look for trends between years, even when questions change, right? Promoting change, promoting progress, changing society. It's very clear what they value. It's very clear what they're looking for. Also, they're one of 2 national universities with Brown that have a full open curriculum. So that's an important component of who they are, and they're telling you that right there. And then you can see the affinity component. It's almost always an affinity component when they talk about how you're going to use the opportunities at their school. So you can see that built into the question as well. So hopefully you guys see value to this. Parents, it's a great project you can do. You can present all this research to your student. If your student's open to talking to you about it, you can talk through it with them. But they're busy. I know you're busy too, but there's a lot of parents that want to help and they're trying to find ways. It's a great project. I encourage you to do it. I'm telling all my students to do this as well. I'm literally just starting to tell them, so you're hearing it right when they're hearing it. I'd love for some people to check back and let us know if you found it helpful. Okay, friends, let's transition to Lisa's outstanding interview with the authors of the book, The Disengaged Teen, Jenny Anderson and Rebecca Winthrop. It's part 3 of 4.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, in part 3 of 4 of Lisa's interview with Jennifer and Rebecca, Jennifer starts by talking about what you can do if you have a student who is stuck in resistor mode. Rebecca talks about what we can do if we have a student who has mental health or learning differences that are impeding their success in school. Our authors talk about dealing with unrealistic parent expectations, and our authors talk about how living your own rejection and how you can turn that into a positive. Listen and enjoy.
It has been my experience as a parent that if I find a child is absolutely refusing to do something, I have learned that there's something about that situation that they cannot do. And that is why they are putting up that fight. How can we help resistors become more engaged? And what can parents do to assist in that process?
So the good news about resistor mode is these kids have agency. They are using their voice, often in unconstructive ways, not toward their learning, to let the world know that things aren't working for them. And so the good news is if you can get things pointed in the right direction, they often jump right into explore mode. They have that kind of chutzpah, for lack of a better term. And we found a few things I'll mention too. I'm sure Rebecca will add some. One is really, and this is really hard. And by the way, we have a ton of empathy for parents in this boat. You feel very judged by parents, other parents, by teachers, by the world. Why isn't your kid doing the thing that every other kid seems to be doing? But and sometimes in that fear, doesn't bring out the best in us. But really often these kids, as you say, there's something going on and we have to figure it out. And to do that, to get next to them rather than sort of in front of them and confronting them and often threatening them, not because we don't love them and we're not looking out for their best interest, but because we're terrified that they are literally foreclosing everything in front of them. This idea of sort of get in the trenches with them, try to see things from their perspective, like what is it that's put them there? And can they talk you through that? And it's just, I think, a nice visual metaphor to just think of like sitting side by side, no agenda. And of course, it won't happen like in the magic moment that you want it to, because that's not how teenagers work. But,
No,
create
it's
enough
not.
opportunities in a car, on a walk with the dog, that it might, and try to get to the why. The other is we really love the work of a woman named Daphne Oyserman, who talks about this concept of future possible selves. And the idea is when these kids are stuck, it is often because they have an identity and they're probably not going to tell you that they don't want that identity, but they can't see a path forward. And so if you can figure out something, and I'm not talking about a profession, that's way too far down the line. It's much more like, how would you want to turn up next year? Maybe it's making the varsity basketball team. Maybe it's, being more popular. A lot of kids talk to us a lot about popularity. Like, okay, like, I think you could do that. Like, why don't we talk about how to get there? And, again, this doesn't happen magically overnight in silver bullet, but like, what would be some of the obstacles and how would you make your way around them? It's having them think through and maybe remind them that other people have, made these big journeys. Like you can, again, use the internet. Like, so this idea of they're helping them construct a future possible self and then a plan to get there. And some faith that you think they can, because if you can't see the way, they definitely can't. And they don't have the developmental capacity yet to see their way out. You do. And so you are probably going to have to be that pathway. So you might have to fake it till you feel it, but believe that they can get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's what parents, we always have to believe like that they can do it. That's our job, their ultimate job, other than, keeping them alive and stuff. But, but that's so important. I guess this kind of leads into some other questions that I had of, let's say a kid is dyslexic. Let's say a kid has ADHD. Let's say a kid is anxious, has generalized anxiety disorder, and that is interfering with their ability to engage. Like, how can we as parents or educators help that particular population of kids play to their strengths and get involved in school in a positive way?
I think this builds off very much what Jenny was talking about in terms of getting to the why. Their kids resist and struggle for a reason. It's not that kids are sort of born, and this is actually a very important point that we haven't said yet. It's not that they're like born and are naturally just a passenger or a resistor or an achiever and explorer. Actually, reams of research in child development over many years show that all kids usually are born explorers and can be explorers. And it's the context they find themselves in and the environment they find themselves in that determines what mode they're in. And so they can actually shift modes pretty quickly. They are not identities. They are not labels. You talked about your daughter being like a super explorer in her documentary filmmaking class, and then kind of bored or struggling in other classes. And it's really not her, it's the context you're in. So if it's mental health issues, if it's kids who are neurodivergent and need particular assistance, that you've really got to figure out what the issue is. Oftentimes it's bullying. We talked to a lot of kids who were struggling with bullying and then really acting out. And parents or teachers didn't really know because it would happen in the in-between moments. It wasn't in class. It wasn't at home. It was in recess and passage and hallway and lunchtime. So you have to really get to that. And for kids who are neurodivergent or struggling with anxiety or depression or whatever, you need to support them to overcome and get the skills they need to be able to function in the world. So there's a lot of work that you can do if, I have a son who's dyslexic and has ADHD, and we've done a lot of work around dyslexic specific interventions for reading, but also framing his neurodivergence as a real superpower. So it's both addressing it, but also a mindset piece. This is an asset. Everybody's brain works differently. There's a distribution curve and nobody is the same. And you happen to have a really great brain for pattern recognition and a bunch of creativity and a bunch of other things, but it does make reading harder. So I think it's intervening both in overcoming the actual skills, but also their own self perception that they can be effective. It's called self-efficacy, is really important too, to build up.
I would add on the ADHD one. I have a daughter with ADHD. And what's interesting is I think so many of the messages around us is sort of, success and or achievement is grades or whatever, there are a set of metrics. And so I just spend a lot. I mean, she really does have some quite unique strengths, but not ones that the rest of the world is going to highlight as much. And so I do a lot to authentically, like she cooks dinner for us a lot. And it's like, literally that is life-changing. I cannot tell you how life-changing it is that we're on calls and she's like, I'm going to make this, 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 and this. And that she loves to experiment. It doesn't always taste fabulous, but the effort is amazing. And by the way I'm always like, oh my God, when you get to college, you are going to be the most popular person. You will be able to put on a dinner party, right? And you will be able to plan it. And so yeah, you struggle with maybe organizing chemistry, but you do not struggle with planning a 2-course meal. Like a lot of people struggle with that. Like literally there are members of this family who cannot make toast and you are making a meal. And so I'm trying to, I get that it's a big, loud world out there, but my message is, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, this is like a strength that will carry her far in the world, and she should lean into. And so it kind of comes full circle to the sort of interests. And, obviously I agree with Rebecca. We also do strategies that are very specific to learning and to helping her with her attention, when she needs it. But there's also just this idea of that is not everything, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that you guys bring up such an important point about what are our expectations of our children and how does society inform them? And as anyone who's had pretty much any child can tell you that your kid is not gonna your kid is gonna teach you to give up on some of those unrealistic expectations or maybe pathological expectations. But that's a struggle that parents have. And you mentioned earlier, if you're saying man, who cares about chemistry? Look at this amazing meal. And you've got I don't know. I used to live in a neighborhood where all the kids were perfect except for mine, it felt like. And so the neighbor's like, well, my kid just, got a Fulbright scholarship and they're only in, freshman in high school, right? Or whatever it is. And, it's hard. It's hard for
So
parents to
hard.
tolerate that. But I think that's part of the difficulty of our jobs is just well, this is my kid and that is more important than whatever crazy value that was.
And a lot of that work, as you say, Lisa, is our work to do. And I totally know how you feel. Because I have my son is a junior in high school, and he goes to a public charter school that is very competitive. It's very STEM oriented and competitive, and taking a million APs and all they've been talking about college forever. And I just really have said we're not doing that. You don't actually need to talk about college and worry about college in freshman year, sophomore year. And it's fine if other parents are going to lean into it, and it's fine if other kids are. It's not a problem, but I promise you from the bottom of my heart, you will not be behind. You can focus on your learning and your work, making friends, your extracurriculars, being a kid in ninth and 10th grade. And then in junior year, not at the beginning of the year, but in the middle of the year, we will buckle down and we will think about what it means. And I do use the term highly rejective school. I said, you could try for a highly rejective school. And just that language doesn't make it very appealing, right? So
no, it does not.
And there's 4,000 accredited colleges and universities in the United States, and there's more in Europe and other places around the world. And it really is how engaged you are when you get there that makes the difference.
Absolutely.
So I've just been hounding those messages along, and wonderful friends and parents. And if they ask for my advice, because I am work in education, I will tell them. But I'm not up in anybody's grill if they're leaning into it heavily. I just don't engage myself.
Yeah. And that, obviously this is a whole podcast about college admissions,
Yes.
but I think this is so relevant, this struggle that parents and families have of like perfection at any cost versus a long-term view of what is going to make your child happy and successful, which obviously, I think anyone would say is to be an engaged explorer,
Yeah.
learner, make your mistakes and, go to a school that suits you with that, and then you're going to be fine.
And I would say that parents are doing this because they love their kids, and they are
Sure,
being
sure.
told by society, including schools, including social media, including, the rankings, that this is how to help your kid the most. That's why they're doing it. It's because they
Exactly.
love their kid. It's not because they're
No,
bad
no.
parents.
Oh, of course
So
not. No,
that is sort of the empathy that I think we have to have for everybody.
Yeah. And I do think it's kind of countercultural, right? Just to lean into your point, I think we just have to be brave right now and say this is right. I think we just in the sort of the message we're trying to convey. And again, as Rebecca said, respect for people to do it their own way and their own values. But permission to parent their kids the way I think feels typically right. But everyone else around you makes you feel like you're wrong. So it's almost like back to basics, right? Trust yourself, because you kind of, and different kids will be different in this way. But I think to convey to them, hey, by the way, we're bucking the trend a little bit here, right? Of course, everybody wants to get on the bandwagon of the best and the brightest and and you should do the best for yourself that you can. But there are a lot of bests, not one best. There are a lot of bests.
Yeah.
And I'm behind you for whatever I'm behind you in the journey is way more important than I hope you get into X. I think that goes without saying, but I just think that idea of all along the way, here with you for the good and the bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, try to bring up with families and students, there's a lot of research that says that for most kids, for their professional success, for their financial success, and certainly for their psychological success, it's better for them to be, a big fish in a small
Yeah.
pond. That if they go, let's say you scrape your way into Princeton and you're at the bottom third of that class and you are toughing it out in every single class, you're going to have worse outcomes. Your self-esteem is shot. Whereas if you went to, I don't know, Missouri State University and you're in the honors college and you were killing it, you walk out of college with all this confidence. You probably learn the same content and you're much more likely to be successful. It's so hard for families to let go of this idea that if my kid doesn't go to Harvard, they will live in my basement and I will be supporting them forever, or they're going to starve, or
Yeah.
they're, not going to make the connections they need to be successful. And that's just, I'm not saying that Harvard or Princeton are bad schools
Right.
at all. They're amazing institutions, but they're not the only ones that can
Yeah.
provide benefits.
I get to live this every day, which is nice because I got rejected from every single one of my top choices. And I think it did me a world of good. I ended up somewhere that literally could not have ignited Explorer mode any more than it did. It completely changed my perspective on, the US. It changed my perspective on learning. It changed my perspective on, I ended up living in Mexico afterwards. I wanted to go to Yale. I'm pretty sure if I had gone to Yale, I would have then gone to Yale Law School, and then I probably would have become a lawyer in Washington, D.C., which is a great thing. But I'm just saying, I think there was a path, and I wanted to be on the path, and I thought there was one path. I did not end up on that path, and there was a great other path. So also helpful when you get to live your rejection.
Yes.
Living proof.
Yeah. And thankfully in life, there are so many opportunities to be rejected. So we get to practice it all the time.
I have a lot.
Friends, this concludes part 3 of 4 of Lisa's interview with Jennifer and Rebecca on the Disengaged Teen. We hope you join us next week for the final part. On Thursday's episode, Vince continues to chat with me about changes he's observed and decisions that came out this year. Hillary joins me to answer a question from a listener who wants to know how a student can demonstrate interest to a college and when should they start. David Blobbaum, the founder of Summit Prep, and I have our final segment in our debate about whether selective colleges should mandate the ACT or the SAT. We'll have the final segment in my interview with Jim Bach, Vice President and Dean of Admissions at Swarthmore College. And Jim is not only helping us to understand SWAT, he also talks to us about the value of the liberal arts, and he addresses some other issues higher ed is facing right now. Friends, when I dropped both of my daughters off at college, it was a really touching moment for me. It was partly touching because I had this flashback to my dad. My dad drops me off at Michigan State, and I see a tear rolling down his eyes. Because what happened was his sister, my Aunt Kay, her son got snatched from the streets by Children of God, a cult, and she never saw her son ever again. And he was over in Korea. It was just a long story. So my dad drops me off, and then I'm cool. I've been going to summer camp since I was 7, and I'm very independent. So I'm ready to go. Thanks, Dad. I'm cool. See ya. Love you, but I'm good. And my dad knocks back on my door 30 minutes later. Son, I just thought you might need some light bulbs. It's really, really a moving moment in my life about a father's love for his son. So it was moving for me, right? Because it's a bad world out there, and I think especially with daughters, you think about it. So I remember, and I'm flashing back to dropping Joy off at college, and I said, Joy, I want to leave you with some words, and I want you to remember these words. Now, I didn't create these words myself. A lot of the good stuff we get, we beg, borrow, and steal, right? We take it from others. So the words I shared with Joy, they come from a 2005 book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield and Janet Switzer. You may remember Canfield's best known for co-creating the best-selling self-help series called Chicken Soup for the Soul. So this is what Canfield said, and this is what I said to Joy, and this is what I'm leaving with you as a conversation you may want to have with your student before they go off to college. This is it. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Did you catch that? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Have a conversation with your student about that topic before you say goodbye and they go off to college, because they're going to make some decisions about who they're going to hang out with, and who they decide to hang out with is going to have a big impact on who they become. See you on Thursday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid.website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stylionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.